Yo, what up guys, what up? In today's video guys, I'm gonna be showing y'all how it's very basic, but I'm gonna be showing you on how to read Excel file. So I'm gonna show you what package to use. It's very easy, straightforward to kind of give you at least the basics of how to read the file, and then how to, in this case, we're just gonna add a new sheet to the file, right? And then kind of walk through that process. But guys, before we get started, if you can hit that like button, guys, give me a follow. Give me a follow on Twitch, which I stream every Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central. Give me a follow on Twitter, guys, and let's get started. So I have a clean project here. I have this Excel file, and let's go ahead and start with that. I'm gonna show you that Excel file. Let me go ahead and open it up. As you can tell from the extension, XLSM, which means it's a micro enabled file. So there's nothing special to this file, right? It's just normal basic. We got one sheet. I did create a macro to run. All it's going to do is going to highlight these cells, but just kind of want to show you how there is, it does have a micro created. I'm going to run it. It just highlights it, right? So it works. It's functional, right? It's doing what it's supposed to do. Let me go ahead and save it. And then, of course, when you save it, you get the warning message telling you about it. So, and that's fine. As you could tell, though, we only have one tab, right? So the whole goal here, we want to be able to read it. We're going to add on to it. We're going to add a new tab to it. And we're going to save the results. And the reason, and this is I got this request from a viewer, and here's the thing though, it's when you use some of these other packages like OpenPy, Excel for example, there's issues when it comes to, like, it fails with its micro enabled files. Ultimately, the main reason why is, so once it reads the data, it's ultimately creating a new zip file, so you do lose a lot of your VBA code or anything that you may have on it. And again, I have had issues with it anyways. And that's why the workaround, at least for me, if I'm dealing with a file that has any VBA or micros or whatever, I'm gonna use this other package. So let's kind of walk through the process of what package I'm using. But nevertheless, you can tell there's one sheet. We're gonna add a new sheet. Nothing fancy, guys, but I'm trying to give you just the basics of, at least kind of point you the right path. So if you're trying to add new tabs to an existing report that has macros already enabled, on how to do it. So the package that we're going to be using is called Win32 or PY Win32. So if you're not familiar with it, let's go ahead and just type in PY Win32. So ultimately, what this package done, it is a package that ultimately acts as, again, this is for Windows, so just FYI, Windows and Windows only in this case, but it acts as Windows APIs. So it doesn't just work for Excel. This works for pretty much almost anything in Windows. Like, you could open up Notepad. You could open up any application, put it that way, right? It doesn't have to be Notepad. Any application, you could open it up. If you're dealing with a Notepad, you could open it up, write stuff to it, save it, be done. You're able to communicate with Outlook. Again, send emails, things of that nature. Communicate with a Word document, spreadsheets. The list goes on, guys. There's a lot of stuff you could do with it. So I used it before. I have worked on a few projects where I use this to do all kinds of stuff. So it's very powerful. It's an older package. It's been around for a while, and at least for me, I have used it on Windows 10. Have not used it on Windows 11, so I can't guarantee if there's any issues or bugs with Windows 11. Yeah, guys, this is a package that we're gonna be utilizing. Just go ahead and install it, right? Pip install py Win32. I already got it installed, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm gonna do, again, it's actually only a few lines of code, guys. It's not hard or any complicated at all. It's actually pretty straightforward. The piece that make it a little bit more tricky would be when once you start, if you're writing, then you're gonna start changing color fonts or whatever. But again, that's with any package. I have noticed it's not as straightforward. But either way, that's fine. Like dealing with data frames and pandas and exporting that out, dude, that's so simple. But once you get to the point where now you need to format columns, or you need to format and convert them to tables and do all kinds of other stuff, yeah, there's some additional work for sure. But in this case, we're not doing all of that. Import Win32 com. Then it's going to be client, and we're going to call this Win32. All right. Let's see. Okay, cool. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open up Excel. Oops. Application. All right. So in order to do this, we're gonna call this Excel Win32 Gencache ensure dispatch. So this is where you got to specify the application, right? We're dealing with Excel. If I was dealing with Word, it would be Word dot application. If I was dealing with Notepad, you know, Notepad again, right? Just you kind of get it, but ultimately this is where you got to specify the application. Keep in mind, guys, this is not just for, you know, Office applications. In reality, this is for many applications, pretty much, probably almost all. Now you are limited what you could do. There's some applications you won't be able to control nothing per se, but you could open it up, right? You could have an application launch. You know, maybe there's something where you want some kind of service to run, some sort of executable file to run that you have installed. You wanted to start up. Well, you could have a script, you know, for example, like this, that'll start it up, you know, on schedule by running it through task scheduler. Then you could have it close out at a certain time, you know, a few hours later. I mean, so again, there's a lot you could do, but in this case we're dealing with Excel, right? So it will be Excel applications. So the next thing that I'm gonna do here is I'm going to do a display alerts equals 0. So the reason why I'm doing this is, I don't know if you noticed, like, let me kind of go back to it real quick. If I open up this Excel file and I hit save, see how I get this message? I don't want this message to pop up. So in order to make this message go away and just bypass it and save, like, you know, save it, but just don't show it, right? Which is the equivalent of just kind of clicking OK. What I need to do, I need to display alerts equals 0. Pretty much as false. I don't want no alerts to be displayed. That's kind of what I'm saying. If I believe if it's 1, it's because it's, you know, 0 1. If it's 1, then it's true, you want alerts. By default, it will show alerts. So I don't want alerts, so that's why I'm applying this and I'm putting 0 to not show alerts. Okay, so now that I created pretty much an instance of the Excel application, now what I'm saying is, hey, I want to open up a file, right? So we're gonna do open up Excel file workbook. All right, so in this case we're gonna call it WB for workbook, and it will be Excel workbooks open, and then ultimately you're going to specify your path, right, or which file it is you're trying to open. So in my case, what I'm going to do, let me just kind of come back, I'm going to call this file directory path, and I'm going to go ahead and specify pretty much this here. So if I go over here, let me go ahead and just copy this, and then let me copy the name. So normally I would, like in these cases when I'm dealing with the slashes, right, directory path locations, I use something like PurePath because it works for Mac, Linux, Windows, and it fixes all that for you. This is strictly Windows, guys. So keep in mind, this is designed to be run on Windows and Windows only. So because of that, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm just gonna, you know, I'm not concerned about that in this case. So I'm not gonna use pure pass. So now I just specify that. But ultimately, this just pointed to my Excel file. That's all it's doing. All right. So once we do that, this is where, again, remember our goal and our object is create a new worksheet, right? A new tab. So this would be create new worksheet. So I'm going to call this WS for worksheet. So assuming you got more than one, then that's where you kind of give it a name, right? Let's say you're creating two. You know, one of them could be, let's call it customers worksheet, and the other one could be sales worksheet or whatever. But so just call it customer worksheet for now. But that's, if you're dealing one sheet, WS, fine. But you're dealing multiple sheets, kind of give it a name to make more sense. I'll give it a name. Then I'm gonna, this would be work sheets, then add. It's pretty much straightforward. Literally just add a worksheet. After we add a worksheet, then it becomes name the worksheet. We gotta name it, give it a name, right? So in this case, we would call it, I'm gonna call it customer list, right? Whatever you want to call it. And let's see. So now let's just put some basic data, right? I'm not gonna go try to create nothing too fancy, but I just put something basic for now. So let me create a list, right? So I'm gonna create my data set. In my case, customer list data set. So let's just call it C list, and so let's just say we're dealing with John, Mike, and we're dealing with Mary, Jane, we're dealing with Paul, right? Just gave it 3 names, right? Something basic, but nothing fancy. Then we gotta pretty much add this list to the worksheet. What we're gonna do in this case. So what I'm gonna do is call it add data set to worksheet cells, right? So in order to do this, we'll do a for name in C list, right? For loop, iterate over it. And then this would be, well, you know what? Let's do enumerate. So that's what we're gonna do in this case. So like that, we'll get our index. Okay. So we'll have our index here. All right. So we're gonna now call our worksheet. Remember, customer WS for worksheet, and then it will be cells. So this takes pretty much two arguments. We have our row, and then we have our column placement, which would which in our case, a column placement, we're going down. We're not, you know, it would be a y-axis, right? So we're going down instead of x. So technically we could just leave it as 1 by default, but what will change will be the rows. Every row would change, right? It will be different. So in this case, this is where I would do something like index +1, right? But let's say I want to give it a header name, because I did not do that. So I'm going to add header So in this case, I would do something like, let me just call the worksheet cell. It will be 1 1, right? First row, first column. And then this will be value equals customer name. Pretty much what I'm doing here. And then once I get down here, I'm doing a increment the index, right? As we kind of iterate over, increment it one by one, so it'll add it to the rows after that. And then again, our column is going to stay as 1 because we're just loading to one column. Again, most time you may be loading from, you know, X to Y, so that's fine. You will add another level, enumerate to kind of, you know, determine that. But again, just trying to keep it basic to some extent. That's how we will write it. After we write it, save workbook. So in order to say workbook, it would be save. And then it would be close Excel instance. So pretty much closing the application, right? That's kind of what it's doing here. And then in this case, it would be Excel application quit. That's it, guys. So again, we're pretty much we're saying this instance that we're creating is our Excel instance pretty much. And then from there we're saying, okay, this instance do not display any alerts. What we're saying. Then on top of that, we're saying, okay, let's go ahead and read this Excel micro file, right? And then after we read it, we're ultimately loading that data set, right, to this workbook object. This workbook object, we're now adding worksheet, right, which is this guy, WS for worksheet. We added it, we named it, we call it customer list. Then I have my data set, something very basic. Again, most likely yours will be more complex, but nevertheless basic. Then we're just going to add this to that worksheet by using the cells function, right? That's how we're adding it. And then of course we're specifying the value. So you gotta specify the placement, you know, rows, columns. That's what it is. The first one is rows, second one columns, and then that's how we're writing. And then we save and we close. That's it. So let me go ahead and save it. So let's go ahead and run it. Let me make this bigger because it's actually kind of small. All right, cool. So now let's go ahead and run this bad boy and hopefully no issues. Boom, it ran. Let's see, did it save? Yep, look at the time. It's pretty much just saved right now. So now let's open it up. Damn, okay, so it loaded the header but no value. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. But it did create the tab, right? So it did do what we wanted to do. We got our original sheet. So let's make sure the macros still work here. So if it does, go to developer, macros, let's run, boom, that still works. It added a tab, it added the header, no values. Oh duh, that's why. See how I didn't assign a value here? So I need to specify value equals name. Yeah, that was my mistake. So if I were to go ahead and delete this tab, save. See how we didn't get that message either, that alert message when I try to save? Which is good. That means that, you know, it's working the way it should. So let's run it again. Done. So it didn't take too long. Pretty quick. Boom. Oh, you know what? I just realized why. I know why. See how my index, well, my index is starting in the first placement. In this case, it would be 0. Then ultimately, I'm adding 1, so it's incrementing by 1. Okay, so what I'm gonna have to do here is, since I don't want this to be 0, I actually want this to be 1, or not even 1. I guess in my case it could be 2, right? Start from 2, increment up. So I could remove that, the +1. What I'm gonna do is there we go. See what says start? The starting point of how we increment. So what I want to do here is for start equals, I want to say 2. So that means I'm starting in row 2. My index will be a 2, which is row 2, which is exactly what I want. So I don't even have to do nothing here, +1 or nothing. So now if I save that, close this out. Oops, I want to delete the tab first. Save. Now let's run it one more time. All right. Boom, there you go. See? Got the header, then we started in row 2 and it went all the way down, which is exactly what we wanted, guys. And then again, it added a new tab. Micros, I'm pretty sure still works, so none of that's got disabled or removed or anything. And if I run it, yep, all of that still works. So guys, hopefully this helps out. I got a request from a viewer. Again, some of these other packages, you know, anybody who's been using Python long enough, there are other packages. A lot of these other packages, they do not work well when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, especially if you're trying to keep intact formatting, macros, all of that stuff. You have issues. I have used other packages like OpenPY Excel and stuff, and some of the issues I have had is in some cases there's some formattings that you kind of lose sometimes. It depends, right? Some of it was something basic where it doesn't matter much, like in some of the projects I work at, where maybe the blue on the original file, once it got resaved, it was a slightly different color blue, like little stuff like that. But there's other major stuff, like even with the macros, where you know it didn't have VBA code or other stuff, and it just doesn't work properly. So another option will be this package, right? The Win32 package, which again, it's very powerful, guys. Not just for Excel, this is for many other stuff related to Windows. It is Windows specific, but it works for many other stuff. And I'll make some videos kind of going more detail other stuff you could do with the Win32 when it comes to like opening up applications, even sending emails. I mean, again, there's a lot of other stuff you could do with that package. But again, guys, hopefully this helps. Again, very basic, with nothing too complex. I appreciate it, guys, for watching the video, all the support I've been getting, and peace.